Hello there, viewers. So today I'm going to be wiring up my Fender Squier P-Bass, and this is basically just a video showing how I do that, and that's it. So I don't really have the best workstation right now, but I'm going to work with what I got. Basically, I have the pick guard. This is a lefty, by the way. On the P-Bass, it actually comes with this long guys pickup, but I'm actually not going to use it. I'm just going to use the 1/4 pound pickups that I purchased for it, and we're going to wire it up like so. This would normally have a tone knob here, and not going to use that either. So alright, so all I'm doing here is showing my solder station, the guitar, I'm just talking about it, and then some wires, solder, and some screenshots I took of a video showing how to wire a right-handed bass. That's what I'm going to be going off of. Alright, so here I just have my ground and my hot wires for the 1/4 pound pickups. I have my wiring for the jazz pickup that I just taped off because I'm not using those like I said. And then the bridge ground. Alright, so here's my pick guard. I have two 500K CTS pots installed, and then the input jack that I'm going to be using. And basically I'm just going over how the tinning works and putting some tin on the back of the pots for easier installation of wires, and on some of the lugs. Your ground wire is going to go to the metal plated lug on the input jack and your hot on the other. Alright, so right here I'm finishing up soldering the hot wire onto the input jack, and I've already done the ground on the metal plated lug, and then the hot just goes on the non-metal plated lug. And it really helps if you pre-tin the lugs first. That way the wires will stick in a little bit easier, and then you can just add some solder on top. And this is basically just how it should look. So I'm going to be soldering the ground wire from the input jack to the back of the first pot that's closest to it. And then I'm going to solder the hot lead from the input jack to the middle lug of the furthest pot. I'm just going to cut the ground wire to length to reach the back of the pot, strip the end, and then I'm going to solder it down. Again, it'll make your life easier if you just add a pool of solder to the back of each pot. And the hot wire, again, I'm putting to the middle lug of the furthest pot. And I'm going to cut it to length again. And this is what it should look like so far. I'm going to ground the inside lug closest to the pickups to the back of the pot. Now typically you'd want to bend the lug closer to the pot, and then you can just create a small bridge of solder from the lug to the pot. But I couldn't do that on mine in this case, and I didn't want to break it, so I'm just going to use a small snippet of ground wire to create the bridge. Here I'm just putting a hot wire in between the two pots that connect to each of the furthest lugs. Alright, so I have my pickup wires. The ground one's going to go to the back of this pot, and then the hot wire is going to go to this lug on the volume pot as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and solder the ground wire from the bridge to the back of the pot that's closest to it, because my ground wire was too short to reach the furthest pot, the volume pot. And then, like I said, I'm going to take the white or the hot lead wire from the pickups and solder it to the outside lug of the volume pot. And this is what you should be looking at so far. Now I'm going to install this capacitor on the back of the pot closest to the input jack and through the middle lug. One thing that I forgot to film and that I had to go back and do after this video was to add a ground wire in between the two pots, like I have shown here. Now I'm just going to button it up and go test the input jack and everything and make sure everything seems to be working properly. In hindsight, I could have just used a couple of the screws to hold the pick guard on and check the input jack and the tapering of the pots, but I felt fairly certain that it was going to work because I had just done one a few days before this and it was fine, so that's why I felt confident in screwing everything back in. Alright, so everything works, and now I'm going to string it up and test it for real.